Okay, so this is like a really basic guide on using Stable Diffusion to get what you actually want. Um, it uses GIMP as well. So your prompt needs to be really blunt. So simple vector art of, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily need an, but I'm going with an example that I've already generated here, so it had an in it. An Art Deco motif at the top of the image with a border around the whole image, incorporating the motif, and plain white in the middle of the image. So you're specifying everything that you want in that image. Using mage.space here because I'm assuming most people don't have Stable Diffusion installed on their computer, and mage space lets you generate an unlimited number of things, so you're not limited to like 10 credits a day or something, which most of the free sites are. You do need an account though, but you can log in with Google. So if you click select models, you've got a few options here. Different models are better for different things, and it does say what to use them for. I've actually picked Stable Diffusion 2.1 for art, which it says is not the best for, but whatever. Doesn't have to, you don't have to follow the instructions necessarily. I did generate it with 1.5 and SDXL and found that Stable Diffusion 2.1 just happened to be the best for Art Deco for some reason. You've also got some settings. Now, depending what you want to generate, you might want to change the aspect ratio. So for something like a letterhead, I'd probably go with tablet 2 to 3. If you're using American letterhead, American paper for a letterhead, so 2 to 3 would be the equivalent of 12 by 6 inches, which is reasonably close. You're going to do some editing anyway, so it doesn't really matter. You can change the number of steps, which is how long it spends generating the image and how good it gets. If you just want it to be really quick and dirty, put it on low. Medium is generally alright. High takes long time, but it works better. Guidance scale is how much it's paying attention to your prompt. So I would normally have that as being strict or very strict if I'm using a fairly long prompt like this. If I just wanted it to generate something and give me some ideas, I'd probably put it on low. So I'd maybe put vector art deco and get a few basic ideas and then describe those images to get a better version, I guess. Number of images you can't change on a free account, so just ignore that. The seed is so it starts with a base number, and if you generate the same prompt with that number, it should in theory generate the same image. You don't need to worry about that unless you're trying to generate something you've already generated. Negative prompt is useful in most cases. I didn't use it in this generation, but you could maybe, if your prompt was letterhead, you could maybe put background or something, and you'd put top-down view in the prompt, and then it would show you a top-down view of the letterhead without like a table on the background or something. These are default things just to stop you getting bad hands and bad faces and things like that. These schedulers generate the images in various different ways. If you're using it for art, then Euler or Euler A are quite good. DDIM is quite good for human beings, along with Keras signatures. I don't actually know what these things mean, but having used all of them for various different things. You kind of get a feel for what ones are going to work for different stuff. Don't know what clip skip does, never enabled it, wouldn't worry about that. And create privately, because you don't want it just appearing on a feed of everything that they've generated. I think you might need to be logged in to create privately. So then you would click that and end up with it generating an image. In this case it generated this one. So now we need to turn this image into what we actually want. So the first thing you want to do is first thing you want to do is you're going to want a symmetrical image for a letterhead, and while this looks relatively symmetrical, it's not. So you basically pick a corner and delete everything that you don't want. So we'll go from here, and we're using the free select tool. Just click in a bit of white space and select everything that you don't want in your image. This takes a little bit of time, so you'll have to bear with me a minute. Don't want any of this stuff, so go over just past half the image. Okay, and make sure that you've got white as the background, otherwise it will put black there, and press delete. Now we only want this section here, so using the rectangle select, we're going to select that and then go to image, crop to selection. Now this isn't black and white, as you can see, so we're going to need to make it black and white. Go to colors at the top and then threshold, and then just move this slider until it looks good. If you get like black at the edge or whatever, don't worry about that, we'll deal with that afterwards. We want the main image to look good. So if you go too far over, it starts making things black that shouldn't be. Too far that way and you end up with things going white. So just fiddle with it until you're happy with how it looks. And then we're going to clean up the edge, just using the rectangle select and deleting it. Now we want to turn this into a symmetrical image, so what we'll do is image, canvas size. In fact, before we do that, select all, so hold Control and press A, that selects everything. Hold Control and press C, and that copies it. And then we'll go to image and canvas size. Change this here to percent, and we want it to be 200% and 200%. And that needs to be up in the corner there where it should be by default. You've got the option to resize all layers. In this case it doesn't matter if you do or don't, so I would just leave that as default. Now we're going to paste in what we copied a minute ago, so hold Control, press V, and it'll paste it in. You've got, by default, you've got the move tool here. If you right click it, you've got alignment, so click on alignment there, and then click on the thing you just pasted, and you can align it to the top corner of the image. Now this isn't symmetrical, this is just copied it over there, so if you look on the right hand side here, you've got different layers on the image. Now this floating section here is the layer that we're using. On the layer menu, go to transform and then flip horizontally, and it does that. Now you need to anchor that down to the base layer, So if you select the rectangle select tool and just click anywhere, you can see before you click it's got a little anchor next to the mouse cursor, and that just means it's going to anchor it. Now we're going to do more or less the same thing, just doing the bottom of the image. So we'll paste it in again and move it to the bottom, and then layer, transform, and this time we're flipping it vertically. There we go. And one more time. This time we're going to need to flip it vertically and horizontally. And now we've got an image that effectively is symmetrical. It goes around, it's got border around the whole thing. Next stage is to create a new image, and you'll have various templates here. If you're in the UK, use A4. If you're in America, use US letter or US legal, depending what paper you've got in your printer. For this we'll use US letter. Click OK. Now go back to this image, select the whole thing, and hold Control and press A to select it all. Then hold Control, press C to copy it, then move back to this tab, hold Control, press V, and it pastes it in. Now you've got a whole bunch of tools here. I'm not sure what the defaults are because it sticks with whatever you last used, but you want to find this one. It'll be next to the crop tool, which looks like that. You've got all these different things here, so if you're struggling to find it, look for any of these and right click it. You want scale. Now you want to keep the aspect ratio and scale it around the center, and click and drag away from it, and it will make it scale like so. So you want it to go right up near the edge of the image. Now we're going to put that at the top. It's already centered horizontally, but vertically we want it at the top. We want this as a new layer rather than anchoring it down to the old one. So you right click the floating selection here and click to new layer. And we want to copy this, so Control A to select it all, Control C to copy it, and then Control V to paste it. And we want to put that one at the bottom, so we're using this alignment tool and putting it down at the bottom. Make that a new layer as well, so right click on the layer and click to new layer. Get the rectangle select tool and delete some of it. Now this looks a bit crappy with two of these on it, so we're going to paste another one in, and we're going to align that in the middle. Make that a new layer, and just delete the top bits and the bottom bits. And it nicely lines up there, and we've got a nice Art Deco border. Now there's a question asked about whether you can put like a logo or something in the top. You absolutely can. So we'll go to Mage Space again and ask for a simple simple vector art of Art Deco logo for a psychic. We'll see what it comes up with. It's not always going to generate great stuff. Sometimes you've got to generate a few different images and just pick the best one. It may take a while to do this. I've also still got it on tablet. For a logo you probably want it on square. but we'll see what it comes out with anyway. So I actually quite like that middle bit, but it's a bit colourful, so we're going to change this to simple black and white vector art of Art Deco logo for a sidekick. We'll make it square this time. This is just a really basic prompt I'm putting in. If you want specific things, you can add to that. I probably should put the guidance scale down. If it doesn't generate something decent with the strict guidance, I'll just run it on. We'll run it on the low guidance and see what it comes up with. Because I'm not asking for something particularly specific here. That's cool. I like that one. Looks reasonably symmetrical. So we'll click Enhance. It says Upscale and Face Fix. I mean, there's no face on it, but it'll upscale it because you want this to be a fairly large base resolution. Then right click, copy image, and we'll go back to GIMP. Hold Control, Shift and V, it pastes it as a new image. Now we probably don't need the borders on here. We'll save them for later, I guess, but we'll just cut out this middle section here. Go from this bit. So I'm not going to bother with making it symmetrical because it's symmetrical enough as it is. If you were hand drawing this in the 1920s, it probably wouldn't be perfectly symmetrical anyway. The border for the page probably would be because you'd probably use a stencil or a stamp or something to do all the different parts, but when it's a logo, it's the whole thing's hand drawn really. So selected around that circular bit, I'm going to Control and C to copy it, put it into a new window, Control Shift V, and we don't want the white around the edge, so we're going to select the Fuzzy Select tool, zoom in a little bit, and click and drag across until it's selecting all of that white there. By default it's probably not going to select the very edge of the white, so just drag it across. If you drag it too far it's going to select everything, which you don't want. If you look sort of near the top of the screen, I guess you can see there's a line around the black at the top, and if you drag too far it stops going around the black because you're selecting the whole image by that point. So drag back the other way until it's pretty close and you've selected the white there, and then just hit delete, because we don't want that white to overlap things. We also want to make sure that this is actually black and white, so we'll use the threshold tool again, and as you can see you can completely fuck up your image if you don't do it carefully. So just drag this across until we're not getting any noise in the white space. By noise I mean like random pixels of black. Click OK. Also we've got a little bit of noise in here, but that's okay, we can change that. So we get the pencil tool, make sure you've got this solid brush. I think sometimes by default it ends up on this one, which blurs around the edges. You want a solid brush there, and you need to change the size so that it fits inside here. You can zoom right in. If you hold the control on your keyboard and use the mouse wheel, it will zoom in or out depending which way you scroll. And we're just going to paint over this bit just to clean it up a little bit. Don't have to do this, but I think it makes a bit of a difference if you just spend that little bit of extra time making it look nice. There we go. Probably do this bit as well. If you want to draw a straight line, by the way, you can click somewhere and then press shift and you'll get like a straight line tool. And then when you click further along, it draws a straight line. Makes filling in stuff a bit easier. And we're going to need to use the black here just to fill in any bits that for whatever reason have ended up white when they shouldn't be. There's some bits at the top here as well. Let's make this slightly smaller. And use that straight line tool, and we can clear this relatively quickly. Oh, if you hold shift and use the scroll wheel, it goes across left to right as well, and then without shift it goes up and down. So hold control to zoom out with the scroll wheel on your mouse, and then put the mouse over where you want to zoom in, and control and scroll to zoom in. These keyboard shortcuts make things like this a lot quicker rather than sort of trying to use a magnifying glass tool. Then how do you zoom out? Oh, you've got to click zoom out and then click a bunch of times, or you could just use your scroll wheel, which is much quicker. Using Control and Z to undo. I actually hit Control and S by mistake, which is save. I'm sure there'll be a list of all of these keyboard shortcuts somewhere, but they're fairly generic between different programs, so it's handy to know them. I'm just scrolling around looking for any white space that shouldn't be there, black space that shouldn't be there, and just quickly painting over it. Yeah, it takes time, but it's still quicker than trying to draw this entire thing by hand. I'm pretty happy with how that looks, so we're going to select all and Control C to copy it. Back on this one, we're going to right click the top one and go to New from Visible, and that makes one image for the whole thing. Previously it was composed of 4 different images. You had the white background, then you had the top, the bottom and the middle. Now we've just got the one image for everything. We still have the other ones in case we need to go back to them, but it's generally a good idea to make a new visible image so that you're working over the top of your what's effectively your final image. So now we're going to paste in the logo, and obviously it's very big, so we'll just use the scale tool here and make it smaller. Now we'll change this again where it's on the alignment. We're going to change that to move by right clicking it and move that right up to the top. Well, that's got a lot of white space in there, so I mean, you're probably going to want to clean that up as well, but we'll put that here. I'm not going to spend loads of time cleaning stuff up right now because you get the idea of how to do that. We'll put it roughly where we want it, and because we definitely want it centered on the page, we are going to change that back to the alignment tool, click on it, you'll see the 4 dots around the corners, and then we just want to center it horizontally, which apparently I already had done. But now we can anchor it down there, or we can put it onto a new layer. If you're planning on doing lots of editing, put it on a new layer. If you're done, like this is how you want it to look, just anchor it. And then you've got your image, and you can go to File, Export As. By default it would be untitled, so give it a name, letterhead.png, and click export, and that's it done.